Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about something pretty exciting and pretty near and dear to my heart. I'm going to be sharing with you some of my tips and tricks, and most importantly what I would consider like the 5 main things to keep in mind for when you're attempting your Crute kit bashes. And so the reason I'm making this first of all is, with the rise of the infamous Tau Codex, or let's be honest, guys, it's a Crute Codex. Um, with the rise of this Crute Codex, I've been seeing a lot of people asking the question of, well, can I make an all Crute army? How do I make an all Crute army? And that to me signals the rise of the Crute. Okay, there's going to be a lot of you people out there that are looking to start making your own Crute, and that will inevitably lead down the road of kit bashing and customizing. Because let's be honest, we don't have that many options as Crute. So let's jump into it. So to start off with, and we're going to circle back to this towards the end of the video, but my number one thing that I tell everybody and anybody that asks me any questions about Crute is do not feel limited by anything. Crute, by their very nature, are adaptable, changeable. They come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, flavors, colors, whatever. Don't feel restricted in any way by the few official models we have. Even in their own lore, they're often described as every carnivore in the pack looking a bit different. There is so much room for variation, whether you're creating big, giant, crazy monsters or just making some unique troops. Don't feel limited by anything. There are people out there that have made Crute armies to represent almost every single other army in the game. There are famous and awesome examples of Crute Admech, Drukhari, Eldar, hell, even Space Marines. And if you want to stick with the Tau and the official Crute like I have, there is still tons of room in there to make some really awesome and unique models. So do not feel limited by anything official. You can make anything into a Crute. But so keeping that in mind, that there is so much room for variation. There is a couple key things to remember when you're making your custom models that will really help them stand out as being part of the Crute species or Crute race. So the first actual feature, and I guess this will be my number 2 in my list of 5 things that are important for Crute kit bashes. This to me is also the one that I see forgotten a lot. And one thing I'm going to say real quick is these next couple things, in my opinion, you can even get away with, neglecting or, skipping over one or maybe even 2 of them. But then you really need to go hard on some of the others. So this first one here that I'm talking about is the Crute Hands. The Crute Hands are incredibly unique design specific to the Crute. For anyone that doesn't know, they're actually modeled after the osprey. It's a fishing bird of prey, and basically it's a 4 digits, but it's like 2 fingers and 2 thumbs. So I'll have some pictures pop up on the screen of examples. How they hold things and how they hold rifles and weapons and whatever is going to look a lot different than other 4-digited races in the galaxy, like the Tau, for example. Now, that said, you can get away with, and I even have, and lots of other people have, using other hands instead of the Crute ones. But if you're going to do that, then you really need to make sure you drive home the Crutiness in some other ways. Now, a couple really cool cheats that I've seen done is to use things like bionics, like robot hands. You can swap out their arm for like a claw or, some sort of robotic appendage, whether it's a weapon or an actual hand of some sort. That can get you away with a lot of it. There's also some really simple ways to use a little bit of green stuff to model a normal or a different shaped hand into a Crute hand. Depending on the pose, you might have to cut off a finger or a thumb, but then you can effectively fuse smaller fingers together into bigger fingers or talons, and then maybe you might have to green stuff that second thumb kind of thing. But yeah, it's not too hard to do most of the time, but that will really, like, that's a standout feature that is very specifically Crute. So anytime you're able to pull that off, and it's a lot less important on the monsters, like on an actual monster like a Crutox type thing, it's not so key. But on your troops, if you can try your best to get that unique 4-digited hand, that will really go a long way to selling it as Crute. If you're not comfortable or you don't feel like your green stuff skills are quite up to snuff, there's a lot of options as far as 3D printing. And from Felix the Crazy, he's made tons of cool custom hands that you can print if you just need the hands for like a different model. And you can also use the hands, of course, from the Crute Carnivores kit. There is some extra arms that come from that, but you will be pretty limited on your poses. So that is my like physical feature tip number 1. So tip number 2, we're going to get into, and this one is probably the most obvious, and that is the Crute Quills. And as I said, these are a pretty standout feature, and they can come in a lot of variation, a lot of variety. Like you can get away with a lot of different sort of beast type animals by using like their natural fur. If you can just paint it, or maybe add a little bit of green stuff to the end to maybe spike it up a little bit more, because the quills are effectively, they're more like feathers. But even if you look at the official models, like the Crutox, the Crute Hounds, the Crute Carnivores, their quills are all very different, but they are there. And they're usually all going to be in the same sort of areas. It's usually going to be on the head in some sort of a spiky mohawk type thing, and then little patches on the arms and legs. So, for example, like if you were going to do some big creature, like say, oh, I don't know, some sort of a dinosaur, right? Like some sort of an Age of Sigmar dinosaur into a big Crute monster. For example, what I did with the Stegodon kit is I removed the Triceratops frill, and then I made my own spiky quills out of toothpicks. I also have done it with green stuff, like on my giant Taunar. And then, so some other options would be you can use things like plastic card, and as I said, toothpicks work. And then, your other probably best option is you can just 3D print different Crute heads or Crute type heads from Felix. Or, you don't have to 3D print it yourself. Obviously, you can get somebody else to do it for you. But you can then resize those heads to whatever size you need. So say you were making something really big, you could get like a great Narlock head and then print it a little bit bigger, that 1.2 times size or something. Or like for my Crutox kitbashes, which are just like really big alpha chad Crute, I printed normal Crute heads at 1.5 size. So that's a couple options for you to look into there. But whatever you do, the quills are very important. And if you're making a whole Crute army, I can't stress enough that having some similar or the same colors across all your different creatures will really help to tie the whole thing together and make them all seem like a cohesive, you know, it makes it really easy to tell that this is all kind of the same creature that we're looking at here. So whatever quills colors you're painting your carnivores, I would recommend that what you do on your beasts is at least similar, or there's at least some colors, tying them together, even if it's something like war paint. But the quills, I think, is a good place to start, as they all are going to have them in some capacity. Right, so number 3, and again, this one should be pretty obvious just looking at them, is the beak. And now Crute beaks are pretty unique in that all of them, from big creatures to small creatures, across the board, is an underbite. So whatever type of creature you're making, whatever size it is, whatever shape the beak is, because the beak can be in any sort of a shape. You look at Crute Hounds, it's long and skinny. Things like a Narlock or even a Carnivore, it's more short, blunt, more of like a crushing type of beak. They are all going to have that really distinctive underbite, and they're all going to be, sharp, like a predatory sort of creature. So, and modeling beaks is actually quite easy, because a lot of the times you can get away with not doing too much detail. Crute beaks, if you look at them, on some of the bigger creatures, it might be easier to see. It's a fairly simple shape to make if you're using green stuff, and then you just have to make like the vertical lines going up it. And that's really all the detail you need to do. Obviously, you can do whatever shape you need or want, but it's super easy to like do that over top of an existing face structure, like whatever creature you're making. It's pretty easy to give it a beak. Some tips that I would recommend is if it's something that has a different head options, usually the open mouth is going to be your easiest option in my opinion. Obviously both can work, but sometimes it's easier to give like to really get that shape out when you're able to work separately on the top and the bottom. That's just my opinion. Some people might think it's different, but I find it easier when it's an open mouth to work with. Sometimes getting that back layer of the beak can be pretty difficult. But so yeah, so my tips would be if it is something that has an open mouth, a lot of times you can get away with leaving some of the more prominent teeth. Like if it's something that has canines, I would leave those. Some of the other ones you might need to shave off, and obviously some different parts of the face shape you might have to trim off in order to make a proper beak shape around it. But a lot of times those canines, you can use them as supports to make the actual like jagged beak shape. So I found that helpful on a couple of different creatures that I've made. And again, obviously, like the 3D print option is there. So moving on from there, I guess this would be number 4. Um, the thing that I think is pretty important is even though we've talked about Kroot can come in all different shapes and sizes, one thing that is pretty defining of the race is that they are almost all lean and slim in some way. Like there's even the bigger, more hulking creatures like the Great Narlock, they look like they would be fairly fast. They don't have like loose skin. They don't look like they would be a slow moving plodding creature. I mean, these are all kind of supposed to be based on birds, no matter what shape they are. So, and again, this, like how I said, you can get away with skipping over one or two of these, but then really drive home the others. So one of like my actual least favorite kit bashes, which is kind of funny because I know a lot of people really liked it, is my Stegodon, and it's for this reason. And I don't think a lot of people really um, maybe would have thought of this, is that it's the shape of it. It's that it looks very uncroot like because it is so like obese and thick and plodding and slow. It doesn't have that kind of lean frame that all the other Crute type creatures do. But I get away with it, I guess, because it has the proper quills and the proper beak, and it's fitting that way. So but it's something to keep in mind. Um, it might, sort of grind on you a little bit like it does with me to see all the other creatures in your army being very lean and slim if you've decided to make some sort of a Crute monster that is suddenly not so. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're selecting models for your kit bashes for Crute, is to try to look for things that have a little bit of that leaner frame, and even better if they are sort of avian looking. Some good ranges to look at is things like the new Cruel Boys. They're very slim. They got a lot of robes. They have a lot of great Crute options. Things like Zinch models often have a lot of bird features going on. Things like maybe like some of the Dark Eldar or some of the Necromunda kits, they're quite slim. It'd be fairly easy to bash those into Crute creatures or Crute people. All right, so this takes us to the end, and I guess this will be my last tip. Is it's less about a specific thing and it's more of a vibe or an idea. It's that no matter what type of Crute you're making, whether these are Crute that are mercenaries or they're Crute that are really closely tied to the Tau Empire still for some stupid reason, because Tau suck. They're guardians of a temple city deep in the jungle. They're stranded in a hive world. They've mechanized themselves. Whatever your Crute are doing, the overall vibe and feel of Crute is kind of supposed to be that they are hunters. They're hunters. They're going out in the galaxy. They're always wanting to find new genetic material. They're supposed to be playing the part of the ignorant savage, even though we know they aren't. And so even if your crew are like really tech savvy, like my crew have a lot of stolen Tau tech and they obviously know how to use it, you want to try to convey that sense of like these are predators and these are savages, in some way. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this, whether you're making it, so they're very bloody, you use a lot of blood paint, grit, grime. You're putting cool, like, scenic bases with dead models on them. No matter what type of Kroot they are, they're very prone to having trophies and, little like talismans and things of bones and, parts of, beasts and creatures they've slain, whether it's, as something as simple as like replacing one of their knife hands with like a bone dagger taken from a tyrannid, or something like that. It's the idea, it's the vibe, it's something that should just kind of come across, like when somebody's looking at your whole army or your whole kill team or your whole whatever of your crew, that's something that is unique to them, from all the other races in the galaxy. All the other races look, at least usually, more tech savvy. A lot of them look more clean. The Kroot are like brutal, they're savage, they're coming from nature. And I think it's really cool, and it really helps them stand out as unique to bring that across the whole army. And yeah, I think that's kind of my last point I wanted to make. So just to tie it all together, I'm going to say again, this is just like guidelines. This is just my ideas. But I do think it's important when you're making these Crute kitbashes of whatever flavor, shape, and size, that you keep some of these things in mind. As I said, it is 100% not necessary to keep all of these things. But if you at least have two or three of these kind of key Crute features and ideas in your model, it will help it translate a lot more to the tabletop. It'll help make, if you're doing a whole crew army or unique units, it'll help them come across as very definitively Crute. And I think sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge for people. Sometimes I see things that like they might look really cool, but it looks more like Crute riding some other type of random Xenos or something that's not really them. Um, and I mean, hey, if that's what you want to go for, that's totally up to you. But yeah, these are just my thoughts and opinions on it. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Crute player, guys. Go out there and make some wild shit. DM me, use the Crute hashtags. I want to see all of it. And yeah, I guess I'm just going to say happy kit bashing. Oh, and if you want to see more stuff, I do have a Patreon. Link is down below. I put all my work in progress stuff in there. So there's definitely some things in there that I haven't shared elsewhere if you'd like to see those. And as I said, send me your stuff. I want to see it. Bye for now.